Hello, my name's Lisa Rose. I'm on the Community Midwives of North Ceredigion. I'm just going to be doing a short video to explain the latent phase of birth. So what is the latent phase of birth and what does it involve? So it's the first sort of stage that most women will experience prior to going into the active first stage of birth. It's the sort of stage where tightenings and things that you're feeling can be quite irregular and have no sort of pattern to them. They can come, they can go, you can have nothing for a few hours and then you can have another sort of hour or two of tightenings. Your tightenings can range from feeling slightly mild to quite intense, but they're not the sort of same strength every single time, so you'll have a few really strong ones and then a few really mild ones. The latent phase of labour can last, sometimes up to a couple of days. For first-time mums, most first-time mums will experience some form of latent phase of labour. It can be as short as a few hours, but it can potentially last up to a couple of days. So it's really important that when you're experiencing the latent phase of labour, especially if it's during the day, that you're keeping as active as you can, because the more that you move, the more active that you are, bouncing on a ball, lots of walks, going up and down the stairs, the more likely it is that that baby's head will press on that cervix, release the hormones, which will then regulate the tightenings, make them come more intense, more strong, and allow them to get into more of a pattern and move on to the active first stage of birth. So lots of moving, lots of walking, especially during daylight hours. If you find that you're experiencing the latent phase of labour and it's going on most of the day and it's starting to become the evening, then it's quite sensible towards the evening to start thinking about trying to wind down, trying to rest, and trying to tell your body, okay, let's slow these down now and give myself a bit of a break. So the best things that you can do if you're doing that is have a nice warm hot bath, whatever sort of temperature you can tolerate, staying in the water for as long as you can, at least an hour, if not a bit longer, taking some paracetamol, making the environment quite calm, quite dark, dim lights, make it nice and cosy, warm drinks, and trying to bring sort of the mood down. And that will either go one or two ways. It will either sort of signal to your body, okay, this is time to rest now and recuperate, and the tightenings will sort of peter on out and you can get a little bit of a sleep, a little bit of a rest, or your body will be like, no, I'm not thinking about rest now, let's make these tightenings a bit more intense and hopefully lead over into the active first stage of birth. So that's the main differentiation then, is there's no sort of pattern to it. It can last up to 2 days. They can be short lasting tightenings or long lasting tightenings, but no sort of tightenings are the same. If you're unsure if you're experiencing the latent phase of labour or you've gone over into the active first stage of labour, then I would definitely recommend that you call the maternity ward at any time and ask for advice. We would ask you, have you felt your baby move? And most mums are like, oh, I'm not really sure, because they've been so focused on these tightenings and getting quite excited that they sort of forget to monitor the baby's movements. So try and keep a little sort of personal tab in the back of your mind that, okay, is my baby moving frequently? And then we'll ask you how often they're coming, how strong they are, how are you coping at home. With the current situation as it is within the current pandemic that we're in, we're trying to keep mums at home as long as possible. So we'll try our hardest not to sort of advise you to come into hospital too soon. We want to try and make it so that most of our mums, by the time they get to us, they're in the active first stage of birth and they can just stay with us rather than coming and going and having more exposure to hospital and the outside world. So we'll try and encourage you to stay at home. If your waters go at any point, or if you have any bleeding, or if you think your baby's not moving normally, then you need to give us a call, and we will of course invite you in. Or if you just get to a point where you're not really coping anymore with the latent phase of labour at home, and you know that they're still irregular, you know that they're not quite in a pattern, but you're just fed up and you need stronger analgesia, then you can give us a call and we can invite you on in. We do have stronger pain relief here. In the latent phase, we can give mums something called codeine, which is another tablet, but much stronger than paracetamol, and can quite often help sort of ease the intenseness that you're feeling and allow mums to get a little bit of a rest and recuperate, ready to hopefully go on into that active first stage of labour. So any questions, give the maternity ward a call, but it's important that you stay hydrated, well fed, try and move as much as you can, and then if it's coming to the evening, trying to get rest and sleep in between the tightenings as they come.